Every morning, he studies numbers, projections, contracts. Every afternoon, he enters conference rooms where smiles hide agendas. Every evening, he replays conversations in his head, wondering where he conceded too early, where he softened, where he let someone else the outcome. No one humiliates him. No one attacks him directly. But something inside of him keeps retreating. He avoids tension. He smooths conflict. He believes harmony equals success. And yet, he feels smaller each month. The breaking moment comes quietly. During a major negotiation, Takashi presents a proposal he spent weeks preparing. The data is precise. The timing is strategic. But when a senior executive across the table leans back and says, "That feels optimistic," Takashi hesitates. He laughs lightly. He reframes. He dilutes his stance. By the end of the meeting, his proposal has been reshaped into something safer, weaker. On the train home, staring at his reflection in the dark window, he feels something unfamiliar, not anger. Recognition. He is not losing because others are stronger. He is losing because he doesn't understand the battlefield. That night, unable to sleep, he opens an old book that had been sitting untouched on his shelf. The Art of War by Sun Tzu. He expects tactics. He finds psychology. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the outcome of 100 battles. The words feel less like strategy, more like diagnosis. Takashi realizes something uncomfortable. He studies competitors meticulously. He tracks market shifts. He anticipates objections. But he does not know himself under pressure. He does not know how fear shifts his tone, how approval shapes his posture, how the need to be liked weakens his presence. The book speaks of deception not as manipulation, but as understanding perception. Appear weak when you are strong. Appear strong when you are weak. Takashi thinks back to meetings where he radiated uncertainty despite being prepared. He sees how perception reshaped reality. He reads about winning without fighting, about shaping conditions so that conflict dissolves before it begins. He closes the book slowly. Maybe the battlefield isn't the boardroom. Maybe it's the space between impulse and response. And for the first time, he feels something different. Not motivation, awareness, a subtle shift in consciousness. He doesn't need to overpower anyone. He needs to stop surrendering internally. Outside, the city hums in restless motion. Inside, something ancient and quiet begins to wake. Takashi doesn't know it yet, but the war he has been fighting has never been against executives, clients, or competitors. It has always been against the version of himself that flinches when challenged. And that version is about to be studied. Takashi begins to observe himself the way a strategist studies terrain. He does not try to change immediately. He watches. In meetings, he notices the microseconds before he speaks, the slight tightening in his chest when someone questions him, the instinct to smile instead of hold eye contact, the subtle lean backward when tension rises. He sees it clearly now. He is compassionate, and compassion, when unmanaged, becomes surrender. Sun Tzu wrote about knowing the 5 types of leaders: the reckless, the cautious, the emotional, the proud, and the balanced strategist. Takashi recognizes himself in the compassionate leader who can be manipulated through harmony. The realization stings, but it also liberates him. Because what can be seen can be adjusted. He experiments with something small. In the next meeting, when a colleague interrupts him mid-sentence, he does not raise his voice. He does not argue. He simply pauses and continues speaking at the same calm volume. The interruption dissolves. It is a microscopic victory. No applause, no visible shift, but internally, something steadies. Speed, he reads, is not haste. It is prepared decisiveness. He starts preparing differently. Not just data, but responses. Not just arguments, but silence. He practices holding eye contact in conversations, allowing tension to exist without rushing to soften it. At first, it feels unnatural. His heart beats faster. His mind screams to smooth things over. But he stays. And something surprising happens. People begin to fill the silence themselves. They reveal more. They negotiate against their own positions. Takashi realizes most conflicts are not about the surface disagreement. They are about status, security, control. When he stops reacting emotionally, he begins to see the real motivations beneath the words. It feels almost unfair, but it isn't manipulation. It is clarity. Still, the old patterns do not disappear easily. One afternoon, under heavy pressure from upper management, he slips. He overcommits timelines again. He agrees too quickly. The familiar heaviness returns. For a moment, he fears nothing has changed. But that night, instead of spiraling into self-criticism, he analyzes the situation like terrain. What was the context? Where was the pressure coming from? Which factor was decisive? He begins to understand that strategy is not about perfection. It is about adaptation. Water does not fight rock. It flows around it. He starts to shift from proving himself to positioning himself. Instead of arguing directly against unrealistic demands, he frames alternatives that align with the other party's interests. Instead of resisting openly, he reshapes the options. Slowly, he experiences something new. He is no longer fighting. He is guiding. And guiding feels different from defending. For the first time in years, Takashi walks into a negotiation not with anxiety, but with awareness. He knows himself a little better. And that knowledge is beginning to feel like power. The shift is not dramatic. No one announces that Takashi has changed. But internally, the landscape is different. He begins waking earlier, not to hustle, not to dominate the day, but to think. He sits by the window with coffee and reviews upcoming conversations. He studies not only objectives but personalities, pressures, hidden incentives. He stops seeing colleagues as adversaries. He sees them as systems. Systems under stress behave predictably. Sun Tzu wrote that victory that does not seem like victory is the highest form of mastery. Takashi starts to understand. In one negotiation, instead of pushing aggressively for his desired terms, he subtly restructures the proposal so that accepting his version appears to serve the other side's long-term goals. When they agree, they feel smart. He does not celebrate outwardly, but internally, something aligns. This is what it means to win without fighting. He notices another change. He is less reactive in personal relationships, too. When his partner expresses frustration about his long work hours, he resists the urge to defend himself. He listens. He asks what truly matters. The argument softens, because most battles are fueled by ego defending itself. And ego is predictable. The deeper realization arrives quietly. The enemy was never external. It was the part of him that feared disapproval, the part that rushed decisions to avoid discomfort, the part that equated peace with submission. Now, under pressure, he breathes. He slows his responses. Neuroscientists describe two systems of thinking, the fast, instinctive system and the slow, analytical one. Takashi learns to prepare with the slow system and act with the fast. The combination feels like calm intensity. He is no longer guessing. He is observing patterns. The boardroom no longer feels like chaos. It feels like terrain, and terrain can be read. Months pass. The external world has not transformed overnight, but Takashi has. Colleagues begin describing him differently. Steady, measured, difficult to pressure. He no longer over-explains. He no longer fills silence. He no longer reacts to every emotional fluctuation in the room. He chooses when to move. And when he moves, it is deliberate. He understands now that true power is subtle. It is shaping conditions so that resistance dissolves naturally. It is recognizing that most conflicts are projections of fear. It is knowing yourself well enough that others cannot easily destabilize you. One evening, after closing a complex deal that once would have overwhelmed him, Takashi walks home through the quiet city streets. He does not feel triumphant. He feels centered. The war inside him has quieted, not because he eliminated fear, but because he understands it. Sun Tzu never glorified battle. He understood that direct confrontation is often failure. The greatest victory is internal clarity. Takashi realizes something profound. The world did not become less competitive. He simply stopped fighting blindly. He stopped confusing reaction with strength. He stopped mistaking comfort for peace. And slowly, Without spectacle, he came home to himself. The real battlefield is not your office, not your competitors, not your relationships. It is the moment between stimulus and response. It is the split second where fear asks you to retreat, where ego asks you to attack, where insecurity asks you to surrender. If you know yourself in that moment, truly know yourself, no external battle can control you, because the greatest strategist is not the one who defeats others. It is the one who is no longer defeated by himself. And the question is not whether the world is competitive, it is whether you are awake inside it.